And how are we going to make this profitable for our lives? So I started thinking about some of the key ideas, some of the more familiar ideas of holiness. The first place that really the idea of holiness comes out in the Bible is in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve had eaten the fruit, and God says, you can no longer be in my presence. Right? God cannot be in the presence of something that is unholy. Why? That kind of bothers me. Why cannot God not be in the presence of something that is unholy, or not sanctified, or not pure, if we want to use that term? By the way, as I looked up these terms, holy, pure, righteousness, justice, they're all different. Holiness is a state of being. Righteousness is a state of acting, or a way of acting. You act righteously. You are holy if you act righteously, or you are acting in a holy way if you're acting righteously. So the righteous is kind of the action verb, and holy is the being verb. God is holy. God acts righteously. And God's justice is something that He exercises His holiness, His righteousness to other people in relationship. So, okay, I apologize. I knew this was going to happen because I knew how confused my mind was, and it kept getting more and more confused. So I knew this morning we're going to kind of be going in some different directions, and I hope we don't lose everybody, but as I pick up these pieces, we're going to try to tie it all together. So I'm sorry for taking the scenic route. Thank you for going on the trip with me. I hope you enjoy the scenery. In the end, pray for me. And pray for each other that we can understand God's holiness. So now, I totally lost my place. So God is holy. In the Garden of Eden, God's holiness cannot allow the unholiness of Adam and Eve to remain in His presence. And He sets up a flaming sword in the hand of a cherubim to protect the gate of the Garden of Eden. It says, you cannot no longer enter into my unshielded presence. From now on, we've got to have a barrier until time comes when I break down that barrier by a very special and powerful means. But for now, this barrier, this angel with this flaming sword needs to remain in place. Another point, Moses says to God, I want to see your presence. Feel better? Moses says to God, I want to see your face. I heard Tony Evans this week was preaching on this very passage, and he's fun to listen to, isn't he, Brian? He's fun. He gets all fired up. And he was talking about how God says, I like, Moses, that you want to see my face. That is a good request. But the fact of the matter is, I, God, am so holy that if I allow you to see my face, you will disintegrate. You will burn up in the holiness of my presence. Therefore, I'm going to put you in the cleft of the rock. I'm going to put you in between these two big rocks here, so it's going to protect you from my holiness. And I'm going to walk by quickly, and you're going to catch a glance of my back. You won't see my face, because if you saw my face, the glory of my face, it would burn you up. The heat, the fire of my holiness would consume you. Hebrews says our God is a consuming fire. And so I will just glance by, I will walk by, and you will catch a glimpse. And then you'll survive. This is a good thing that you request, but my holiness is such that this is the way it must be. Isaiah writes this whole prophetic vision. He gets to see God in a vision. Once again, there's that barrier protecting Isaiah. But he gets to see God in this vision. And then he writes down his vision in his book. Do you know that of all the characteristics that Isaiah uses to describe God, he uses holy more than any other? More than 30 times, Isaiah talks about God as being holy. Of all the things that he could be impressed about God, his size, his power, his goodness, his gentleness, his mercy, his forgiveness, his radiance, his glory, his omniscience. Of all the characteristics that Isaiah sees, holiness is the one he writes more about than any other. To Isaiah, holiness is the paramount characteristic of who God is. God is holy. God comes down to the mountain on Mount Sinai to visit with Moses and to give Moses the 10 Commandments. Do you remember the command he told Moses to give to the people while he was up on the mountain? Anybody? Something about the mountain. Don't touch the mountain. He said, tell the Israelites, don't touch the mountain. Why? Because God was on the mountain. The mountain had been made holy. And anybody who touched the mountain would die because of God's holiness. God simply touched the mountain and made it holy. We think of holiness as purity or cleanness. And we think if you take a glass of clean water and a glass of dirty water, and you pour the dirty water into the clean water, what happens to the clean water? It becomes dirty, right? It's not the other way around. You pour the clean glass into the dirty water, it becomes clean. It doesn't work that way. But with God, it does, because God's holiness is so overpowering. But it's not that the dirty water becomes clean when God enters into it. It's that the dirt is consumed with the fire of God's holiness. It's destroyed. And so when God comes down on the mountain, he says, don't touch the mountain, because the mountain's going to survive. But if you touch the mountain, the unholiness within you will be consumed and you will be destroyed completely. Because there is no goodness. We are not good in and of ourselves. I was thinking about this in relationship to our faith in Jesus Christ. When we stand in the presence of God's holiness, I think there's going to be an aspect of consummation, that the fire is going to burn over us and is going to purify us. What does that mean? It's going to destroy anything that is unholy within us. Well, what's the only thing that's holy within us? God himself. Because God is holy, holy, holy. And when we invite Christ to live in our hearts, guess what? Our hearts are holy because of Christ's presence. And so when we stand before God, that seed, that kernel of our faith, will be the thing of us which survives. All the unholiness, all the evil, all the temptation, all the failings, all that will be purified, consumed, destroyed, and will be left nothing but holiness in God's sight. The more I came to understand that I didn't understand the holiness of God, okay, did you follow that? The more I came to understand I did not understand the holiness of God and would not ever fully comprehend the holiness of God because of the vast, overarching, all-encompassing nature of God's holiness. The more I came to understand this, the more I came to realize the seriousness, the severity of sin.